First of all, a very successful tennis coach. That's number one.
Yeah!
I'm going to give you the mic. I understand that you take all the credit for Damien's success. Is that right?
It is correct. I'm gonna turn the mic off.
Yes.
So you can hear me.
Amen.
Damien is just a great friend, and Mike too. When I met Damien back in '72, I only knew him as a player. I used to go watch him when he played at SUNY Adirondack, and he was my brother's very close friend. And Frank used to drag me to these games up in Hudson Falls, and he said, "There's Dart." They called him Dart because the way he moved on the court. And it was the first time I ever saw somebody tomahawk the ball in a game. And who would know that I'd be with him in '72, coaching, when he said, "Would you take the modified team?" Along with Coach Gary Klinkowitz, who's here tonight too. Gary's with us. Where's Gary? Gary has the distinction, he is a ref now, but he has the distinction of being the only coach from Saratoga thrown out of the gym at a modified level. But we had a competitive group, and I did bring a couple of things to share, if you don't mind. Because Coach made some remark about tennis in the paper. So when I took Coach on as my assistant in tennis, he showed up with this racket. Now, I took it from him and I threw it and I said, "I'll give you a racket." So I gave him a racket. And the thing about this racket, he played with it when he was at Mechanicville, and they only had, I think, half a tennis court there. And it's signed by Pancho Gonzalez. Now, he was a great player back in, I don't even know when, 1950s. But on the other side, Damien was always modest. He put his own picture instead of Pancho's and wrote Coach Fantauzzi there, Damien Fantauzzi. Oh yeah, he had a press too on that.
Oh yeah.
Well, wait a second, I gotta have a chance. We're on a time schedule here.
Don't worry about that.
Now, I was in South Glens Falls, and Steve Grandin's here. He reported from Saratoga, and he will attest. I got to tell you a couple stories. Coach always got a little volatile. And in those days, you know, you could yell, scream, throw a towel, maybe a clipboard or two, and he'd get a technical, but they'd never toss him from the game. The rule today is they toss him. So one game I was at, South Glens Falls, and he got out of hand. I love him. I stood in front of him, right, Coach? And I prevented the technical. I grabbed his jersey. He got so mad at me on the bus, he said, "Don't ever grab me again." And I said, "Why?" He said, "They're going to think I'm crazy." And I said, "But Coach, think about it." So I actually kept that jacket.
Oh my God. All right.
That is his jacket. I saw his pants on Facebook too. And the last, another thing, and Nate Lewis, Buddy Clark, you're going to remember this, I believe it was a 78-79 season. We were very good, and we went to Hudson Falls. And I believe there are human stories too to tell. Because I remember Jimmy Parker, when he was a 7th grader, coming up to me in a game when he had to face some racial comments in a basketball game, and I just put my arm around him and said, "We just got to be taller than that." I mean, we faced a lot of things as coaches, but when we went to Hudson Falls, we had to beat them. And Coach gave this talk before the game, and he had everybody around him. He had taken the newspaper from the Post-Star, and he had grabbed that paper and he had it right in front of him, and he just put it in their face and said, "Look at this. They're out, they're ready to beat us, and this is all about Hudson Falls." And I'll still remember that night because I'm the little guy, I'm learning from Coach, and I'm scared. Those kids, yes, Carlisle and the guys, those kids grabbed that newspaper, and that's what it looked like when they were done. And I'm going to tell one human story, a couple. Nate Lewis, who I really love, and I always did as a young kid. Karen and I became very close to Nate and Buddy and all the guys. But I remember a game, and I think Mike was coaching at that time, and I was his assistant. you might remember, my memory's not as good as others, but Nate didn't show up for the bus, and we were going to South Glens Falls, and there's no way I'm going there without Nate, because I grew up in South Glens Falls, and we weren't going to lose. And we had to go find Nate, so we took the bus, drove over to his apartment. I'm right, aren't I, Nate? And it was boarded up. They'd had a fire in the apartment building. Those are the days before cell phones, and you know, today they'd probably say, heck with him. We took that bus until we found him. I think we found him either at the Y or doing his linen or his laundry down on Main Street where he did his laundry. No kidding. And I'll never forget it. And it made me realize as a young kid that we all have stories and we're all facing things. And I learned so much from Nate and Buddy and all these guys. I can't say enough for Joy for putting this together.
Yeah, Joy!
And today, I'm sure there's all kinds of stories. Coach has a heart, they both do, that are huge. Jerry Growley, I don't know if his dad's here, or Rob Growley is his father here. I called them today. Lastly, we were at a game in Mount Anthony, and that was the 88 team, 78 team that went undefeated. Michael Beach and those guys. They were so kind, but they could bust your you-know-what. And poor Rob Growley, we had a great game against Mount Anthony. They were undefeated. Robbie went the wrong way, got the ball at midcourt, went the wrong way and scored. And everybody, we go in the locker room, Coach Fantauzzi and I, and they busted. I'm telling you, guys gave him a hard time. We got on the bus, and Damien pulled Robbie up front and told him how he did the same thing at Mechanical. How Damien had gotten the ball when he was a young kid, a freshman, and went the wrong way to score. Robbie went back to his seat, and I looked at Damien and said, gee, I never knew that happened. He said it didn't. So here we go.
One more thing before we get started. We lost during our tenure of Blue Streaks basketball, we lost 3 great players, great kids. Skeeter Lewis. 74-75 team, Mr. Greer. And all reliable and Mr. Clutch, you know, almost every game he played, Mike Beach. And one more thing, Jeff Bishop. You remember that? There was 2 games that stand out, 3 games. Back in the 74-75 season, we won the first Burhill Championship in the old gym against Hudson Falls. Roy Greer, Toby Youngblood, among others, won that game for the first Burhill Conference Championship, 75-69 in the old gym. That's a great one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
2 more games. The old gym again, it was Shen and Toby. Shen was undefeated. It came to Saratoga, and the Blue Streaks won the game in overtime with Damien and his players holding the ball for the whole 3 minutes in overtime. And we knocked off the mighty Shenandoah Plainsmen. What a night. At this time we're going to go back over and we're going to introduce the players and we'll get started. Thank you very much.